Hey, what's up everybody? Joshua Casper back at you with Plugin Boutique, and today we're checking out a brand new plugin on our site called Subbass Doctor 808 from Untited Plugins. This is an incredibly easy to use plugin that is designed to help you with those low end frequencies. It's perfect if you're on the go, if you're on your laptop, or if you're in your headphones, and you just need to make some quick adjustments to get your demo ready. In this video, I'm going to walk you through what it has to offer and then show you what it's doing using a spectrum analyzer. So let's go ahead and jump into it. This is Subbass Doctor on the screen. Very straightforward. We got an on-off switch. We have an in and an out gain levels. Then there's the big knob in the middle, which is kind of the focus here, which says Cure. And then there's saturation and sub. So Cure, actually, what this does is carves your bass for you. It does this in a musical way with really great filters, and what it does is rolls off kind of where the muddiness is and some of the harsh higher frequencies that's typically found in sub bass, and just cleans it right up for you. Then there's a really nice saturation, and I'm going to show you a lot about this. This adds some really pleasant frequencies in the mid-range, and then sub will boost your sub harmonics, again in a pleasant and musical way to give that subby end to anything that might be lacking it inside of your project. So I've got a few projects inside of Ableton Live here. Let's just go ahead and listen to what it does. So this is the first project. All right, kind of housey. And what I'm gonna do, I've got a sidechain on there. I'm just gonna go ahead and solo this and play with these three knobs to see if you can't hear what's going on. Let's go ahead and set them all back. If you right click any of them, it'll set it to its starting point. And if you double click, you can add in a value as well. So there you can hear it's a tighter bass. Now let's listen to that saturation on this. It's just a really good saturation, in my opinion. I can see me using this plugin just for that saturation. It sounds so good. I'm going to show you it on something other than bass later on in the video, but you know, having it on this bass in particular around 30% does wonders. So I'm going to pull that down, and let's go ahead and bump up the bass parameter or the sub parameter. All right, so you can really hear it. And by the way, with any bass plugin, whether it's an instrument or an effect, you should always be using really nice headphones or a really nice sound system, because a lot of what's happening here aren't going to be captured by, you know, your laptop speakers or, you know, kind of consumer grade laptop speakers or your consumer grade headphones. We're talking about the sub frequencies here, and you need some decent headphones to hear that, just to point that out. Let's jump on to the next bass. All right, so this bass has a lot more going on in ways of frequency range. So again, let's just tweak out these three parameters and see if we can't hear what's happening. So with a full frequency range here, this isn't really going to do that good of a job, because when you put the Cure knob into the higher realms here, it starts to roll off the higher end frequencies. And again, this is a sub-bass Doctor. It's meant for sub-bass, but I'm just trying to give you a general overview of what it's doing here. And, you know, with a bass like this that's really full in terms of frequencies, this might not be the best approach. However, it is a great tool for adding that lowy, subby end to this if it was missing it to begin with. And of course, that saturation, just adding a tinge of extra harmonic frequencies in the mid-range. Cool. Let's move on to the next one. So again, doing a really good job, especially pushing that sub bass and making it really, really full and large. And the last example I have is actually a drum loop. If I pull this down. So there is a subby 808 there. If we want to boost that, that's very easily done with the sub parameter. All right, so very small value here because that sub is already pretty boomy. But watch what happens when I introduce the saturation here. And again, the cure knob isn't going to work here because it's going to roll off the higher end, just to show you. So that's not going to work for us with things like drums, but the saturation on these drums sounds phenomenal. Even cranked up to 100, it still sounds really good. So once again, very simple plugin to use. It is very versatile in terms of what it can be used for, especially because of this sub parameter and the saturation parameter. But in terms of the cure knob, you're definitely going to be wanting using this on your bass patches or your sub bass patches. And it does a really good job at getting your mix ready or good enough when you need it in a pinch or you're trying to do it quickly without a lot of work. So let me show you what it's actually doing. I'm going to open up FabFilter Pro Q3 here, and I can actually resize the GUI, clicking and dragging. And what I have here is Pro Q3 on one channel with the Subbass Doctor, and then I have Pro Q3 on another channel, and then I've fed both of those into one instance of the Pro Q3. And we can actually see the full spectrum of both. So the red spectrum in here is an unaffected version, and then the gray one is the one with sub-bass, and it's after there so you can see what sub-bass is doing. So let me go up to this first, and if I pull everything down, including the saturation, you can see here that the two frequencies are overlapping, and you might notice that the output, I did have to boost that up a little bit. If I double click here, you'll see that I had to boost it up 3 decibels. And that's because when you drop Subbass Doctor onto the channel, it actually reduces the volume because of these other parameters and what they're going to do to the sound, especially the saturation and sub parameters are really going to boost the signal. So let's watch the frequency range and see what happens as I use the cure knob. So you can see right here that it's really reduced the sub frequencies here. So it's cleaned those up in a sense. It's also reduced the high frequencies over here. And that again is cleaning it up if we're just looking to capture the sub bass of this particular instrument, which we are. Now let's pull in the saturation. Can see where it's boosting those frequencies. It's doing a really big boost here in the mid frequencies. It is doing some over here in the top at a really high level. If I pull that down, this is where we're going to see most of the character really come into play when I'm using the saturation. And finally, the sub bass, as you might expect, are really boosting the sub bass frequencies over here. Now this already has a lot of good sub bass content, so I'd only might push this a little bit, but for something that happened to be lacking sub bass, like a electric bass for example, that you wanted to add a little bit of sub energy to, this particular plugin with this particular parameter is going to do a great job at doing that for you. Anyway, that's a quick look at Subbass Doctor 808. It's available now on pluginboutique.com. Links in the video description if you want to check out more. I'm Joshua Casper. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video.